Happy Monday and welcome to a new episode of Case Cracked. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Before we dive into today's story, I want to remind you that you can get another Lorden Art story every week on the Seriously Mysterious podcast. A new episode is coming tomorrow and every Tuesday after that. Visit www.seriouslymysterious.com and subscribe on your favorite podcatchers. There is no YouTube version of the finished podcasts, but if you want to join a live secret recording session of Seriously Mysterious here on YouTube, make sure you have notifications for the channel turned on. It's that little bell icon next to the subscribe button down below. Recording sessions are live only. They disappear as soon as it ends. So when you see that notification, head right over so you don't miss out and help me create a new episode of Seriously Mysterious. On to today's story. Of course, Case Cracked is the show where we look into a mystery and what are the critical pieces that help solve that mystery. Today's case is called Under the Woodpile. Taylorsville, North Carolina, is one of those small southern towns where residents feel like everyone knows everyone else. This is the place Travis Lee Baker called home. Born to Dwayne and Trish Baker, their 19-year-old Travis was everything they hoped he would be. Outgoing and cheerful, he loved to fish and hunt as well as play football. He played at Bunker Hill High School until he graduated in 2005. After that, he had gotten engaged and worked full-time with his mother at Merchants Distributors, or MDI, a company that distributes food to retail stores in several different states. At that time, his top priorities were his family, his fiancée, and the children they were planning to have. Travis remained very close to his family, especially his father, whom he spent time with outdoors. To Dwayne, Travis wasn't only his son, but his buddy as well. Before he went to work on April 16, 2007, he planned to make a couple of stops on his way to have lunch with his fiancée. At 11:09 a.m., he sent her a text stating he was at a friend's house and was preparing to visit someone else as soon as he left. Then, at 11:27, he sent her another message saying he was waiting in the driveway at his second stop. He said that he was looking forward to seeing her and would be there momentarily. 20 minutes later, when he hadn't arrived or sent a message, she tried calling his phone, but received no answer. When a couple of hours had gone by and the lunch appointment was completely missed, she tried calling again. This time, her call went straight to voicemail. She was immediately concerned. Travis never turned off his phone or allowed it to run out of a charge. When she called Dwayne and Trish, both immediately started trying to track down their son. Dwayne had talked to Travis that morning at 9:30 a.m., and nothing had appeared to be wrong, but when it was time for his shift at MDI and he didn't arrive, they were concerned enough to call the police. Travis was frequently seen around town in his 1998 Candy Apple Red Camaro. As police started to make the rounds and question local residents, the people they talked to had last seen Travis near Oxford School Road heading to work. The friends that Travis went to visit that morning were questioned. Both were cleared and said they had no knowledge of where he went after. When his cell phone data was accessed, it showed that no calls or messages had been sent after his last text at 11:27. Investigators believed it was either shut off, dead, or destroyed, and its location could not be found. No trace of Travis could be found anywhere. As months started to go by, police were baffled at their lack of leads. Dwayne and Trish, however, could not rest. Over the next 2 years, they constantly reminded the community of his disappearance, posting hundreds of missing signs and sending letters to media outlets. There were some reports that Travis could be found in nearby Catawba, just 30 minutes away, but when officers investigated those leads, they found nothing. Every lead was followed, but still no Travis. As his younger brother got older, he took to borrowing clothes from his missing older brother's closet to comfort himself. Billboards began to spring up in nearby counties, and the family held a vigil each year on the anniversary of his disappearance, begging for anyone with information to contact authorities. The search for Travis was a frustrating one that offered very little comfort to his parents. To keep their own hope alive, they began assisting in searches for other missing people in their area, eventually helping with 15 additional searches, In one of those, the person was actually found. Community leaders even added to the small reward for information his family was able to provide. His father, Dwayne Baker, would say, "To keep my sanity, I try to give back. It's the right thing to do. It's frustrating that we, the families of the missing, have to work on our own to get answers. We are the ones out here that cannot sleep and worry every minute of the day. We all have the right as American citizens. My son and I both have rights, and I will continue to exercise them, and for the victims who have no voice." One heartbreaking winter, the family was notified that remains had been found that could belong to Travis. For 4 months, they suspended their search efforts as they waited for word from the medical examiner as to who the remains belonged to. Finally, frustrated, they made the call themselves, only to be informed that Travis had been excluded as a possible match during the first week of the investigation. No one had bothered to call and tell them. At another point, the family was told that his information had been entered into CODIS, only to find out it was not, and had to demand that it get entered. All the while, Dwayne attended conferences to learn as much as he could about missing people, what rights he had as a relative, and how to search. "We'll never give up on Travis," he constantly told reporters. "Until I take my last breath, we'll not give up. I just want that one tip that tells me where he is so I can have that closure and peace of mind." Finally, in June of 2009, the Bakers' prayers were answered. Investigators received a call from a man named Dan Mitchell in Florida. Dan was the brother of a man named John Lee Mitchell Jr., who used to live in Taylorsville. John had recently claimed to his brother that he had killed people in North Carolina and buried their bodies. Investigators immediately brought John in for questioning. When asked, John gave investigators a possible location for the body, a property in nearby Catawba County owned by a man named John Whitmer. When officers arrived and questioned Whitmer, he stated that he and John used to be friends, and from time to time, he allowed John to store things on his property. Now, investigators just needed a search warrant. On June 24, 2009, they returned to conduct an exhaustive search of the 100-acre property. Searchers and cadaver dogs soon got a hit near a woodpile on the property. They moved the pile and underneath found a shallow grave. In it, they found a skull riddled with bullet holes. As they dug further, they found more bones, clothes, and car parts. Whitmer was astonished and claimed he had no idea Travis's body had been hidden on his property. That same day, authorities in Winter Garden, Florida, arrested and extradited John Lee Mitchell Jr. to North Carolina for questioning, where he proceeded to give a full confession. He claimed that on April 16, 2007, Travis stopped at Mitchell's residence on Oxford School Road to deliver narcotics. Before leaving, the two men began to argue and insult each other. Mitchell claimed that Travis then made a racial slur about his biracial grandson. That's when they started to fight. As things escalated more and more, the two slammed into Mitchell's toolbox, but he didn't just store tools in it, there was also a gun in there. Catching Travis in a headlock, he grabbed the gun and pulled the trigger. At first, Mitchell was in a panic and had no idea what to do with Travis's body, so he kept him inside his house for a full day before deciding to bury him hastily on Whitmer's property. Mitchell then took apart Travis's car, hiding some of the parts with the body in the grave. The rest he took to Florida, where he had the remainder of the car cut up and disposed of at a scrapyard before fleeing to Orange County, Florida permanently. When Travis's parents were told their son had been found, they were overjoyed. When they were told who the suspect was, they told officers that they didn't know John Mitchell, and their son had never mentioned him before. Travis was an athlete and outdoorsman, they insisted, and was never known to do drugs. Mitchell was set to go to trial in January, but to everyone's surprise, accepted a plea deal the first day of court. His defense attorney argued that if the case went to trial, Mitchell would claim the murder happened in self-defense. She would argue that the day of the murder, Mitchell was losing the fight the young man had started with a racial slur. She would say that Mitchell was only defending himself when he grabbed the gun and shot Travis. She also stated that there were several witnesses who would testify about Mitchell's nonviolent history and, quote, gentle personality. With his mother being a lifelong police officer, he was an upstanding citizen, she argued. John Mitchell, she claimed, was very remorseful and had always believed he should be punished for his crime. After talking with the family, John Lee Mitchell's original charge of first-degree murder was changed to second-degree murder, robbery with a dangerous weapon, and concealment of a body. He was ordered to serve a maximum sentence of up to 15 years in prison with credit for time already served. In court, Dwayne was allowed to read his impact statement. Looking directly at the man, he stated that Mitchell had taken something special away from them. He said they didn't believe the allegations against their son, that he was a good boy with a bright future. Mitchell's only response was, "I am truly sorry." Travis's family doesn't accept his apology and does not agree with the plea deal. They realize that the self-defense claim and other factors may have swayed a jury if the case went to trial, something they did not want. But at least this way, he would serve some of the time they felt that they were owed, leaving them with some closure but little comfort. To this day, Dwayne still doesn't believe the accusations of drug use. Quote, "If he did do that, it was something he got into just 1 or 2 weeks before he went missing," Baker said, adding that his son was required to take regular drug tests for his job at MDI. But even if Dwayne is incorrect and Travis was involved with drugs, he makes a simple observation that rings true on many levels, and specifically with my heart. Quote, "That shouldn't have any bearing on the fact that he was a missing human being." Case cracked. We would like to thank the Hickory Record for its comprehensive coverage. Observer News Online, WBTV.com, Find Travis Barker, The Charlie Project, and newspapers.com. And of course, thank you, Christy Arnhart, for researching and writing up today's case. And let's go ahead and bring her on to discuss this. Christy, welcome back to Case Cracked. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello.
It's so weird to do that with someone that is such an important part of this show. Tough one today. What are your first thoughts on the case that we just covered?
Well, first of all, I completely agree with the father. It doesn't matter if his son was doing drugs or what situation he was in. Nobody deserves to be missing.
Yeah.
Nobody's family deserves to go through this.
Definitely. And I think that's really the important thing to consider. I know I try to ring this bell as much as I can on the channel, but a missing persons case isn't really just about the missing person. It's about everyone else that's going through it. It's about the hole that's left in this world. There's a bunch of other lives that are affected when any one of us goes missing. And it's about helping all those people too. So even if you do believe for some reason that, hey, someone that's involved in selling drugs or something, they don't deserve to be found. Well, think twice about that, because there's a lot of other people that are affected and maybe they have nothing to do with that. To that point, I don't know, when you're talking to parents in particular about someone, in their early 20s and that age range, did your parents know everything that you were doing, Christy, when you were that age?
No, and I just thank God that I don't have kids right now, because when I think about it, I'm amazed that I have made it to the age that I have.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of in the same boat. I know that there was certainly some stuff I was going through that my parents weren't aware of. So it's tough, because I actually watched some videos of Dwayne talking about this, and you can see how hurt he still is. And I actually saw some footage from the trial also. Obviously, he's emotional during that as well. And I don't think it really helps their process in terms of going through something like this to really know the truth at that level or not with this type of outcome. It's one of those things where who knows why the pieces fell this way, but this is where they landed, and this is what the family has to deal with and has to move forward from. So how would it really be beneficial to say, well, I mean, I always struggle with this, because I think people are looking for like a comfort level, well, if I can find a reason why I don't have to care about this person, then I don't have to be as emotionally involved in this whole thing. but the families can't do that. Even if,
No.
even if he might have been doing something that maybe wasn't exactly legal or on the up and up, or, even if he got into a scrap and, started an argument or something like that, it still doesn't mean that you deserve someone to reach into a toolbox and end your life.
No.
There was a couple of other things that you had noted, and I just wanted to touch on. We don't know for certain, but it seems like in his obituary, there was a note that he was preceded in death by a son, Dakota Chilton Baker. And we don't know the conditions around that, but we know that obviously having a family was a big focal point, especially with how much family meant to him. So just kind of another very sad aspect to this case as well.
Yes, very sad.
So what kind of takeaways do we have from today's story, Christy, in your mind?
Well, it just reminds me how hard the people left behind have it, because nobody is ever in this situation voluntarily, and you very rarely know anyone who's gone through it. So you don't know what to do. You don't know where to go, who to turn to.
Yeah.
That's why I'm glad that we have the section up that we do at brainscratchers.com.
Yes.
Vigil, how to look, what to go about. It gives you some really good ideas.
Yeah, and we actually just did a very significant update to it. We've released a new video on how to make a NamUs entry. That's already up there by the time you guys are seeing this. But there's also been a lot of information added into the written section about the tips, and it came directly from a family member that had a loved one that went missing. We covered them on the channel. He wanted to thank us and also kind of help bolster that information because he actually found it as a resource. So we've worked his tips in there as well. I'm just trying to make it the best resource that we can, and I'm hopeful that more people find it early on in this whole process. Especially one of the things he talked about, it's such a smart idea, and I know people would not be thinking about this when you have a loved one go missing. But he was talking about be sure to get a DNA sample immediately. Grab the toothbrush, grab the hairbrush, grab their bathrobe, get that stuff into plastic immediately. Just such a good tip, and a bunch of other direct insights from people that are going through this firsthand, as well as experts that we compiled all that from. So.
And those are things that you never think about.
No, who would think about that? And, we've already had tips there about, like, if you get to the missing person's house, like, be careful how you're handling the doorknobs, so that you're not wiping away potential evidence, or be careful how you're going through the home. If you see anything that looks like there's a struggle, back off immediately, contact the police. It's not quite a checklist, but I've written it out as close to a checklist as I can. So that you could literally kind of follow it and just go step by step with it. But now we've got a bunch of great.
So much more of a resource than what people usually have, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's one of those things you're not thinking like that. You have a loved one go missing, and it's like, oh, they're going to pop back up in a day, or I'm going to hear from them in a couple hours, and then you get past that, and then it's not one day, now it's 2. When do we start getting concerned about this? When do we start taking these extra steps? So it is there, and we always include a link to it in every episode of Searchlight in the description box as well, because I'm hopeful that people will use it, and they know how to find it. That's really the hard thing, because just, trying to find the right search to get to that information can be tricky as well.
Well, we know at least one did, though. Thank goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I've heard from several other people that have used it as a resource as well, and that's already made it worth the time and effort that it took to put it together.
Yeah.
Christy Arnhart, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your dedication to this show, and thank you for sharing these great stories as well.
Hey, thank you.
But we've also got some other people to thank. Thank you, PayPal supporters Jennifer Wilson, Reese, who recommended the Alan Geel story and then made a donation. I really appreciate that, Reese. Michael Park, Kelly Joe, and Mark Witt. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit lordandarts.com. There you can sign up for PayPal, sign up for Patreon, or buy merchandise. All of it keeps me here with limited commercials, and in some cases, we have to go completely without commercials. So I really appreciate your support. Together, we'll continue learning about justice and how to keep ourselves and our families safe. I'll be back tomorrow on the Seriously Mysterious podcast, or I'll see you again on YouTube on Wednesday with a new episode of Searchlight right here on the Lord and Arts channel.